With the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, praise be to God, the cherisher and sustainer of the world. Most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment, thee do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. Amen. Thank you. I saw Holly earlier before we started. Is he available? Michaela, can someone else come up and representing Sankofa? Our brother Jonathan is coming up. We thought it was very impolite to begin this program without acknowledging Sankofa and the owners and leaders of the institution. And brother Jonathan is here, and we're just grateful because before, I think it was 1997, you all didn't exist. And it's very important that you're here now, and we hope that you stay here. And we're encouraging everybody here who's in the building today, as well as people who are watching us virtually, to figure out ways that you can support Sankofa. Brother Jonathan.
Thank you. It's hard work, but it's work that we love to do, and we appreciate you all always coming out and supporting us, whether it's often or here and there, to and fro. We always appreciate y'all showing up, and especially for events like these. This is really why we do it. In a lot of ways, just to commemorate people that really meant a lot to us as Black people, and having books buying about those particular Black people as well as others. So yeah, I mean, we just really appreciate y'all coming out and doing this with us today and commemorating Brother Malcolm.
Thank you, Brother Jonathan. Now we're going to get a chance to see a video of the funeral from Malcolm. And one of our members, a leader of the Positive Black Folks in Action, Sharon Khan, Dr. Sharon Khan, is going to come up and set the context for that. Dr. Khan.
Greetings, everyone. And for those of you who don't have programs, we can circulate them. I did a little program for the event today. And we have, I'm going to try, if we can bring them up, 3 short videos. The first one is the video of Malcolm's funeral that took place on February 28th, the week after he was assassinated in New York City. We're going to show you that. And then we're also going to have a video of Ossie Davis doing the eulogy at Malcolm's funeral. And the last one is a poem that was written by Luis Reyes Rivera called The Bullet Cry. So bear with us as we try to bring these videos up. Thank you very much. raw footage that Professor Bailey got from someone years ago. So it's just, we don't know who took it, but we do have it. It's about 10 minutes. And that's the motorcade leaving New York City, going to the cemetery. So you'll see that in this clip. And other than us, I don't really think anyone has this actual clip. Mhm. It's going up in the Westchester Fernwood Cemetery is where Malcolm was buried. And actually, Professor Bailey was at the funeral of Malcolm, so you'll see him in this clip. Oh. Actually, Professor Bailey, who's one of the surviving members of the OAA organization, was at the funeral, and you'll see him in this clip as well. Pete, is that you on the, let me see, there you are.
Right.
There's Pete on the right with the gloves on and the glasses. You see him?
A few pounds later.
There's Peter, did a clip of him and Malcolm's wife, Betty. February 28th, this took place, 1965. Okay.
Sharon, how far is the cemetery from New York City?
Fernwood, I would say about, the heart of New York City, maybe about 40 minutes. Because it's in Westchester County, New York. Remember, his wife was pregnant when Malcolm was assassinated. She had twins that following October.
Is that Malak?
Malak and Malachi, who passed away. It's been 2 years, or last, I think it's been about 2 years since she passed away, the last daughter. Be close to the-
Is that church still there? Where the funeral was taking place, is that church still there?
This ingredient with water before bed balances blood sugar levels and targets.
The assassination of Malcolm X was an unfortunate tragedy. It reveals that there are still numerous people in our nation who have degenerated to the point of expressing dissent through murder, and that we haven't learned to disagree without being violent to disagree. At this final hour, in this quiet place, Harlem has come. Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much birds you don't want to see around each other. No, before you come. For gallant young champion.
Mhm.
One more, please.
Okay. We're having some technical difficulties, so we're going to skip this part and go straight into the discussion. And our first presenter will be Professor Peter Bailey. Mr. Bailey, you want to come up? And I'm just going to read the brief bio on the back. Professor Bailey is one of the remaining members of the OAAU, founded by Brother Malcolm X in 1964. He is a journalist, author, columnist, and professorial lecturer at several colleges and universities. He is the chair of Positive Black Folks in Action and former president of the Stephen Lawrence Legacy branch of ASALH. He has authored several books, including Witnessing Brother Malcolm X, the Master Teacher, and his most recent book, Brother Malcolm's Strategic Pan-Africanism. Welcome, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you very much, Sharon. And I want to give my greetings to people who are here today. I'm glad that you're here and have an opportunity for us to once again commemorate the assassination of Brother Malcolm, and also to bring back once more his contributions. As Sharon said, I was a founding member of the Organization of Afro-American Unity, which is the organization that Brother Malcolm founded to carry out his policy of, which just basically built very solely around the concept of Pan-Africanism. He believed that the people of African descent around the world needed to work together and be apart with each other. He did not just come that on his own. Most people don't know, but his mother and his father were both strong supporters of Marcus Garvey. So Brother Malcolm had something about that in him, taught to himself before he got into public eye. When he was a youngster, he was aware of people like Marcus Garvey. I heard Brother Malcolm speak for the first time in the summer of 1962. I had just moved to Harlem, and I must say that I moved to Harlem rather grudgingly because I had accepted all of the stereotypes, that Harlem was just one big nest of criminals. And so you had to be very careful. You might get shot up just walking the streets. And I really had kind of accepted that. And the only reason I moved in was because a friend of mine, she had a friend who had an 8-room apartment on 142nd Street in Harlem for $56 a month. And there was that rent control thing going. And he had to move, the friend had to move to California to Arizona for health reasons. And so they were gonna let someone have to rent that apartment for 3 years. So I decided, $56 a month, 8 rooms, I'll take my chances on Harlem. So I moved to Harlem, and I moved in on a Friday evening. On that Saturday morning, instead of unpacking and everything, my friend and I decided we were gonna walk down what was in Lennox Avenue. Now it's Malcolm X Boulevard. We were gonna walk down Lennox Avenue to 125th Street. Because, we didn't know hardly nothing about Harlem except all the stereotype things that we had heard. So we walked down and, saw people, and we were very, very, I must say, surprised to see so many black folks, in New York City. I had lived down for a while in New York City for a couple of months on the west side of Manhattan, where you saw very few black folks. And so we got down to 125th Street, and we said, well, let's go down further. So we walked down, we got to 116th Street, and we saw a crowd gathered, and we said, what's going on? And they said, oh, Malcolm X is going to speak. Now, at that time, I had heard vaguely of Brother Malcolm, and of course, everything negative. Oh, he's a violent. He preaches violence. He hates white folks. They just everything negative. He's very critical of black folks. He don't like black folks who won't become members of the Nation of Islam. I mean, all of this stuff I had heard about him. And so I had not, I would say, fully developed an idea about him, but it was not a very, very pleasant feeling. So we said, okay, let's see what he got to say. I said to my friend and my best friend, let's see what he got to say. And the brother spoke for 3 hours, and we stood there in that crowd of people for 3 hours and listened to him. And by the time he finished speaking, I always say I was already a Malcolmite, because I had never in my life, I was 20 years old. No, I'm sorry, I was 25 years old at the time, and I had never heard in my life talk about race in America with such clarity and such vision and such truthfulness and knowledge. I just never heard that before. I had gone 2 years at Howard, and I had my first introduction to Black history. Those 2 years I was at Howard from Dr. Harold Lewis. So I began to get a little bit about Black history, but nothing like what I heard Brother Malcolm say. And so by the time he finished, I was Malcolmite. From then on, wherever he spoke in the New York City area, I was there. Wherever he spoke, you couldn't be speaking, I was there. I went down to the Nation of Islam. I was just kind of, at that time, coming out of my connection with Christianity, and I really had no desire to join another religion, so I had no desire to become a member of the Nation of Islam. But I did want to, support Brother Malcolm. So I would go to things rally and, listen to him speak. And when he mentioned books and magazine articles, I would try to go and read them and everything. And one day, a friend of mine, I was working at the time at Time Inc. I was what they call editorial reference clerk. What I did was I had to read 7 newspapers every day and go through them and check out the names in the paper and put them in the file for the Time reporters. They were in Midtown Manhattan. That's what I was doing that as a job. It turned out it was a very, very interesting and valuable job for me. And And a friend of mine, she was working as one of the first black interns at NBC. And we had met because in Rockefeller Center at that time, we had a lot of restaurants down below. And so I was invited to go to one of the restaurants. And she and I used to meet and sit down there and talk about each other. And generally we talked, about politics, civil rights movement, those kind of things going on. And then one day she said to me, would you like to be a part of the founding of a new black nationalist organization? And I said yes, because I'd heard the whole concept of black nationalism from Brother Malcolm. And she said, okay. She said, well, I'll call you on Saturday and tell you where to meet and what time, and don't ask any questions. So I said, okay. So she called me Saturday morning and told me to come up Upper Manhattan, about 160, I think it was 168 street, somewhere around there in Upper Manhattan. And it was a motel there. Now, I said, we're going to be in that place, because I heard about that place, in a kind of reputation. It was one of those places you could check in for 2 hours. And so I said, well, you have a meeting in that place? And she said, yes. Don't have to look, just come. So I got it, went on up there. And the conference was on the ground level. I walked in, I saw her roommate, I saw Dr. John Henry Clark, who I did not know, but who I recognized because I had seen him before. I saw John Oliver Killens, the author. Again, I had seen him, I did not know him at the time. And I saw maybe about 10 or 12 other people sitting around, they put these tables together there, everyone was sitting around. And so I took a seat, and we sat down there, everybody, people were talking to each other about different things. And after I'd been there maybe about 20 minutes or so, Brother Malcolm walks in. And until he walked through that door, I had no idea that I was going to be a part of an organization with Brother Malcolm. Until he walked through the door. And he came in, he introduced himself. Each person there introduced themselves, and then we began the formation of the organization. He had already selected a name. It would be the Organization of Afro-American Unity, the OAAU. And he was naming it after the Organization of African Unity, which had just been formed in 1963. So that was why he wanted that to be the name of our organization. And so we met there and, decided everything, to talk about different things, different committees and everything. So when Brother Malcolm started saying, what are different committees? At that time, I didn't know which committee that I would be on. And they would be the youth committee, the education committee, the economics committee, the political committee. And so finally Brother Malcolm said that he was serious. He always believed that an organization must have its own instrument for communications. You cannot depend on anyone else to get your message out. And so he wanted our organization to have a newsletter. And I had absolutely no journalistic experience at the time, but I did read a lot. And I did very well when I was in high school in my years at Howard, and courses and things that required writing. I did very well. So I kind of volunteered. I told him I had no experience, but I volunteered to become editor of the newsletter. And that's how I got, that's the beginning of my involvement with Brother Malcolm. And we eventually ended up publishing 9 issues, which I have copies of. All 9 issues I still have. And we were the ones who were covering what Brother Malcolm was doing internationally. Because he was convinced that the only way that we could promote and protect ourselves in this society was to have connection with people of African descent around the world, especially on the continent of Africa. And this is when African countries beginning to get their independence. And of course, he was traveling to Africa. He, in the book that I wrote, the current book that Sharon mentioned, right, Brother Malcolm's Strategic Pan-Africanism, I have photographs of 7 African leaders that he met with. President Nyerere of Tanzania, Nkrumah of Ghana, Nasser of Egypt, Kenyatta of Kenya, Obote of Uganda, Toure of Guinea. He had audiences with these brothers. They waited from 1.5 to 3 hours with each one of them separately. They in turn then invited him to come to the Organization of African Unity meeting, which is going to be in 1964 in the summer in Cairo. And he went to that meeting. He distributed information about the OAAU, and he began his following through on his campaign and his belief that there had to be a connection, that people in North America had to have an ongoing connection with people of African descent around the world. So he became he made us into very strong Pan-Africanists, to the point where I tell people that he taught us, you cannot, well, you can't really put it this way. If you're going to be a serious Pan-Africanist, that's got to be the first identity. Instead of being a Muslim Pan-Africanist, a Christian Pan-Africanist, a Nigerian Pan-Africanist, a Ghanaian Pan-Africanist, an African-American Pan-Africanist, you got to be a Pan-African Muslim, a Pan-African Christian, a Pan-African African-American, a Pan-African Nigerian, a Pan-African Ghanaian. But Malcolm told us that and emphasized that just over and over and over, that Pan-Africanism had to be able to be that first identity, and not let things divide us because I'm a Christian, he's a Muslim, and he's a this and he's that. If we all Pan-African, we're not going to agree on every single issue, but we argue among ourselves and discuss things among ourselves. But we would still, in the larger way, we would all be Pan-Africans, and that's how I became strongly convinced that Pan-Africanism is our only really safety thing for Black folk around the world, including today. I still believe that today, although I think that it's sad to see that it is not very strong here in the United States, and it is not even very strong on the African continent. Malcolm used to tell us that the North America, Europe, and Asia had all developed the idea that we got to keep Africa divided. We don't want the Africans to become continental. Because with Africa, and just as it was then and just as it is now, many of the minerals needed for the modern day world are on the continent. They're on the continent of Africa. And so the other continents, in order to keep, if you got 6 African people, 10 African people on 1 acre of land, and they'll call themselves the Republic or whatever, they would send in ambassadors right away. Because they wanted to have all these little tiny, many small countries around the continent instead of having Africa be continental. And Brother Malcolm taught us that over and over and over again, constantly. He spoke about that. February 21st, 1965. When I went up to the Audubon Ballroom that day, where we were having our rally, I had just seen an article in the paper that day about brothers in, I think it was Louisiana. They had formed a group called the Deacons for Defense and Justice. And they had decided that they were going to start protecting Black people and Black neighborhoods where the whites were invading and beating people and abusing people and even sometimes killing people. They were going to start forming protection. And I saw the article in the New York Times that morning. So we went that afternoon to the Audubon. I took it with me and showed it to Brother Malcolm. And he read it and he said, yeah, that's a good idea. Because he believed strongly in self-defense. People always like he believed in violence. He believed in self-defense. And that's what he does. Now, when Brother Malcolm came to the Audubon that day, I was sitting, the Audubon had a huge ballroom, and a small entrance level. So I was kind of sitting in the entrance level when he came in. Not on February 21st, on February the 20th, the day before, I had a meeting with Brother Malcolm, and he had asked those of us who were involved with the OAU what was happening with with the youth committee, the culture committee, and when it was my turn to talk about the communications committee, I told him that I had written a press release about the firebombing of his home, which had happened the previous weekend. His home had been firebombed. And fortunately, his family got out, but all of their belongings, everything was burned up. So I told him that I had written a news release that I was going to distribute the next day, that February 21st at our rally. And I showed it to him. And Brother Malcolm said, Brother Peter, I wish you would not distribute this. And I said, okay. Because Brother Malcolm was well aware, there's another thing I tell people all the time. He was well aware of how this country got a lot of us tied up in court cases and those kind of things because of something we said or something we did that they can use against us. And even if it's not strong, they can keep you tied up in the court for a year, because of something that you said. And so he told us that. In fact, the very first issue of the newsletter, where I wrote an article, my first article was about the killing of that 14-year-old boy in Harlem that led to the Harlem uprising in 1964. And Brother Malcolm was in Africa at the time, and he was calling back, and we were reading those of us with different things that we were doing. He would ask us, what was the state of the culture committee, of the education committee. So when it was my turn, he asked me I told him that I had written an article about killing that boy, so he asked me to read it to him. And I did. And I said, eyewitnesses to the murder. Brother Malcolm stopped me. He said, no, Peter, you cannot say murder. Murder is a legal term. You can only use when the person has been convicted. If you call him a murderer, and I say it's a murder, refer to him as a murderer, and then he can sue you, and we know he's going to be acquitted. The cop's not good. So when he gets finished, gets acquitted, then he gets sued. But live, he said, call him a killer, and refer to it as a killing, because he's a killer, and it's a killing no matter what the circumstances. And that was something I learned directly from Brother Malcolm. Now, this is Saturday, February 20th. February 21st, when he came in, I was sitting in a little area facing the steps, and because we had there was a Protestant pastor coming to our meeting that day to make appeal for closing Brother Malcolm's children. So we were all sitting around talking and everything. And about 6 of us out there, in this little area. And when Brother Malcolm came in, and I was sitting there, he said, Brother Peter, come backstage, I want to talk to you. So I said, okay. So I went backstage. Now, remember now, this brother has been under tremendous pressure. Tremendous pressure. Previous weekend, his home had been firebombed. Before that, he'd been banned from grants. And all kind of little things were happening. But you know what he said to me that day? That Sunday? That same Sunday, February 21st, while he asked me to come back in, he said, Brother Peter, I hope you understand why I asked you to not distribute that thing that I was going to distribute and everything. And I told him, yes, I understood. Because I had put something in it, he told me, that they could use against us. Maybe you can get it. I don't know, to this day, I don't know exactly what it was. Because we put the thing to the side. I have not seen a copy of it since then. I don't know what happened to all the copies. But we pushed them to the side. But that was, and I tell people, now this brother was under all this pressure, and yet he was concerned about my feelings. This is on February 21st. And we talked about other things. I showed him the article about the founding of the need for defense and justice, and talked about that a little bit. He said, that's good. Self-defense. And then he said, does anyone here know what the pastor who's going to raise, ask donation for clothing for his children? Did anyone here know what he looked like? I said, well, I do. He said, well, go out front and wait on him. And when he comes in, bring him backstage. So I said, okay. So I went out front and sat in a little area, where the entrance was. And as I told you before now, the other part is a huge ballroom. And what they did, they had chairs on the side, they had tables on the side where you could sit with benches and everything. But the rest of the ballroom was open. And when because they had all kind of, social dances there and everything. When we had our meeting there, they had to put chairs up, for people to sit in. And so they moved the chairs back when they had people giving a lot of social events there. So, I'm sitting there waiting for this pastor to come in, and the Audubon, all the people sitting inside and, in the chairs, few people sitting on the side, including Mrs. Malcolm X, and the children sitting at one of the side tables. And I heard Brother Malcolm say, "Assalamu alaikum." And after I heard him say that, the next thing I heard was shots. And I said, sitting in this little area. So we thought, because hearing the shot, we thought they were nearby. So myself and the other 5 of us were there. There was a bathroom kind of off to the right, so we ran into there till the shooting stopped. Then we came out. When we came out, I went into the main ballroom again. We went into the main ballroom, and I ran down and jumped on the stage, and Brother Malcolm was on the stage. He was laying there in the arms of an Asian American woman who had become very strong, not a member of the AU, but a strong supporter. And she had Brother Malcolm in her arms, and I saw all of those bullet holes in his body. And I remember saying to myself, he's gonna die, he's gonna die. And he was gasping. He was not dead, but he was gasping. Finally, the brothers came in with a stretcher. Columbia University Hospital was right across the street. Not one doctor came over to the Audubon. The brothers had to they went over there and just took a stretcher, one of those, the rolling stretchers, and rolled it over to the Audubon, and they put Brother Malcolm on it, and then they rolled out. They took him across the street to Columbia University Hospital. And I jumped out off the stage and came out, and a friend of mine probably saved me from getting arrested that day, because I had seen, when I was sitting in that outside, there was a little office there, and I saw 3 policemen in there. So when I jumped off the stage and was walking out, they were walking around, people laying all over the floors, crying and screaming, and chairs all knocked over, and they were walking around like they were in the middle of Central Park or something. And I was just about ready to say something to them, when my friends grabbed me and said, "Keep them outside." And I walked them out of the Audubon. And if I had said something to them, got loud or something, they might have, they always thought that I had been, arrested or something that day. But he really said, "Keep them outside." And I remember, but that's what Brother Malcolm had taught us. Don't go off and give them, unnecessary excuses to arrest you. And that's exactly what I would have done had I gone over there and started shouting and yelling at them. That's exactly what I would have done. And I remember when I came out of the Audubon, I got outside and people were there. They grabbed this dude and they were beating us. And I found out later that he was one of the people who they had claimed was one of the assassins. And the cops took him away from them and threw him into a police car and drove away. And I went on home. My friend took me home, and for the next 3 days, it was 3 days before my birthday. 3 days before my 27th birthday. And that was my memory of the assassination. And I think I'll stop there. And if anybody has any questions.
We're going to do questions later on.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's give the peope a hand.
By the way, on this coming Saturday, I will be 86.
Okay. I'm grateful. We all should be grateful to Peter, because, and Peter can correct me, I think there are probably about 4 or 5 members of the original OAA you left. Is that correct, Peter?
I don't think there are that many.
Okay, less than 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in a society and a culture that really list people up after they're dead. You know, but what I want us to do is to recognize Peter while he's still living. Let's give him another hand. I have the honor today as part of the committee to introduce our next speaker. And our next speaker is Brother Khalid Mekki, and he's a Palestinian from Gaza. And I was talking with a friend of mine when we were planning this program, and he said, why y'all got a Palestinian speaking on a program honoring the assassination of Malcolm? And I said, first of all, you don't know Malcolm's history. Our brother Peter just recently finished a book talking about Malcolm's, what's the international?
Malcolm's strategic Pan-Africanism.
Strategic Pan-Africanism. But I want to go further back. I'm a Muslim, and my last name is Mukmin. And Mukmin in the Quran is the believer. And in the Quran, we're taught that oppression is worse than slaughter. And I know that also we have a couple of students here from Howard University and a professor from Howard. I had the pleasure of getting locked up at Howard University when we were trying to protest against compulsory ROTC in the 60s. And we were supporting the people who were struggling in Vietnam. And Sharon Khan is probably going to share later on in the program some quotes where Malcolm spoke out in support of the Palestinian people when he was alive. And also I want to share with you a wonderful quote. Some of you are probably familiar with Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. And he said something that resonates with me. He said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And this was the response I gave to that person, and also talked to them about in 1985, me and thousands of other people here in Washington, D.C. were arrested in front of the South African embassy here on Massachusetts Avenue in D.C. And people ask me the same question. South Africa is 8,000 miles away. Why do you get involved with that? The same kind of issue. And Peter always appreciates information that shows parallels. On April 4th, 1967, and some of you may know who are students of history, Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech at Riverside Church in New York City. April 4th, 1 year exactly to the date that he was killed. And I can't remember the exact title, but the title of the speech is that there comes a time we have to break the silence. When he spoke out for the first time publicly against the war in Vietnam. And people say, why are you doing that? You're a quote civil rights leader. You know, but he was speaking against the war in Vietnam. But let me tell you about Brother Khalid. In fact, I just met him about half an hour ago. He really should be called a Renaissance man. Brother Khalid Mekki brings over 30 years of experience in diverse areas of business development, product development, process development, risk management, quality engineering, quality control, and project management, focusing on continuous improvements. Khalid works with food and hospitality, biopharmaceuticals, combination products, medical devices, and has an extensive automotive system background. He has engineered and launched products with significant exposure, working in cross-functional teams applying concurrent engineering principles. Khalid co-authored the first published book on medical device design for Six Sigma in April of 2008. In his last job, he led small businesses from restaurants to wholesale companies, and also led initiatives in developing and deploying new processes, utilizing operational excellence tools and techniques across multiple companies. He also consulted and coached development teams to successfully achieve a design for Six Sigma Design Quality. He is currently the managing partner of Bawade, and I may be mispronouncing the name, Mediterranean Restaurant in Falls Church, Virginia, and the CEO of Design for Lean, an independent consulting firm specializing in helping organizations to drive results by leading projects, coaching and training teams to increase first pass yields, optimize their process, and reduce non-value added activities. But let me tell you why I think I'm especially happy today to have him, is that when I talked to a good friend of mine, Fitcher Muhammad, and I said, we want someone who talk personally about how the war in Gaza has affected them. And Brother Khalid can share, I don't really know, since October the 7th, I know the last time I checked, there were more than 20,000 folks in Gaza who have been killed. And I said on a Zoom call with some of my friends, this killing more than 20,000 people as a result of some 1,400 people who were killed reminds me of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You can't justify killing innocent women and children regardless of what your political motives are. So I'm going to stop and let Brother Khalid, who was born in Gaza, and also he has a restaurant here in Washington, D.C. that we want to try and be supportive. And I told him to come, and I have some cards that he gave me. I said, during the civil rights movement, I was arrested as a teenager. One of the strategies that we used during the civil rights movement in the 60s was the boycott. And I said, as African American people now who are progressive, we have to flip the script. What we have to do is people who are standing up for justice and freedom, we have to provide support. So Khalid is here, he's hot, he's got to go back to his restaurant, but we're going to bring on Brother Khalid Mekir.
Then you will talk into this because we got people with us virtually also.
Okay. Thank you for having me here. Thank you. And in memory of Malcolm X, a great leader, and I hope we can have one that comes back like him to change the world. This country is ready for a change, and hopefully we need the leaders to do that. So my name is Khalid Makki, Khalid in Arabic. I was born in Gaza. I've been in this country for over 25 years. I have a beautiful family, 3 daughters and a boy. Grown up and almost have 2 colleges and 2 schools. Inshallah, I'll try to be brief and give you answer some of your questions and hopefully give you a map of where Gaza is and this current war. It's like the injustice of what's happening against the Palestinians. It's been for a long time, and maybe this war just exposed it to the whole world. There's no more hiding to the injustice that's happening there. Would you be able to pull the map I sent? Or no. So Gaza is it's really tiny. It's like smaller than maybe half DC. And it has 2.4 million people living in it. It's the highest dense area of like the number of people live there, probably in the world. It's beautiful. It surrounds, to the west of Gaza is the Mediterranean Sea, so they have the long of Gaza is there's the sea, there's a nice beach, but unfortunately surrounded from the west and north by the Israeli border, which is, it's like, what do you call it? Makes Gaza as a prison. When they, with their military ships, they go in the sea, they're completely closed and Gaza is completely closed down. I wanted to show you, there is a nice map that I sent it to Brother Ibrahim, the evolution of the Palestinian issues. For some people who are like history guys or like people interested in history, they might know. But since 1920, when the First World War, when the English took over the Middle East and divided between the French and Spain, the part of Palestine was given to the English, to England. And in England, the occupied Palestine, there was a lot of injustice, a lot of, like, use of resources. They slaved the Palestinians, but not too many people talk about it. It was for a long time, and they started allowing or simplifying, and it was completely, if you go to any map before 1948, and it's dated, you will see completely Palestine. Palestine, especially Gaza, had the biggest port, like a seaport. It was, the cities of Palestine was like, you are in Manhattan. You will see things really, we were developed people. We had a lot of resources and things were really, we were doing well. Except when the English came over, they started running down people, giving the Jews more freedom to move in, and it was accepted by the Palestinians because we always accepted all religions. Not like that. It's the Holy Land. I mean, when you are in Bethlehem or Jerusalem, everybody lives in peace and like neighbors love each other. It was never religion, the issue of religion, color, it was never there. And it started developing since the increase of the immigration of Jewish or Zionists to Palestinian area. And they were welcome till they started making gangs. And that's in the 40s, the 43, 44, they started forming gangs because they had a plan that they want to take over the country. And slowly, by given the chance by the English or the British government, and here's the 1948 war, where they occupied almost maybe 53 or 56% of the land. They became declared Israel. Gaza, West Bank, a lot of parts around Gaza, around the West Bank, it was still Palestinian under the Palestinian Authority or Palestinian government till 1967, when they declared war, where they occupied the Gaza Strip part, the whole Sinai Desert in Egypt. They went to the Golan Heights in Syria and a big part of southern Lebanon and part of Jordanian area. And that's where they declared Israel, full Israel. But these areas of Gaza, West Bank, major part, Lebanon and Syria were recognized by the international law and United Nations as Palestinian areas under occupied, which is, they call it the occupied territories. Those occupied territories from 1967 until maybe, I want to get it where, like 1993, when Oslo Agreement started peace between Israel and Palestinians, it was diminishing. So, and I'm not, if you look at a lot of, like, even YouTube, they can't hide it anymore. The way the progression of settlement it was in Gaza and Gaza until 2005, they pulled out. But in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, if you have a nice house and they like it, they just kick you out and go in until today. Until today, if you have a piece of land that it's high on the top of a hill, and those settlers, they decide one day they want it, they will go come with the bulldozers, cut your trees, kill your, whatever, like sheeps, if they have like sheeps and, animals growing there, like, they will kill them and just take it over until today, with a whole world watching. But the media, that unfortunately, is not showing that part. They're trying to hide that, mask that part. So until today, they still, like yesterday, they started a new settlement near Jerusalem. They just kick out the people of the land, is confiscated and done. And you can't go anywhere. You can't just, like, when you go to court, you know you're losing, because you're going to an Israeli court. The Gaza in 2005, they decided they cannot bear the losses because Gaza people somehow, I would say, maybe summarize it, they have nothing to lose. So it's very hard to go and battle with them. When you're fighting somebody who has nothing to lose here, I mean, it's a problem usually. And that's what they've been showing the settlers. That's why in 2005 they decided they pulled overnight, no coordination with the Palestinians. They never, at that time they had a good relationship with the Palestinian authorities, and they had Palestinian, peace movement is growing strongly. I want to back up in 1996 I was part of a peace movement between the Palestinians and the Israeli Peace Now. And I want to be fair when I say, people can coexist. And we proved it in multiple meetings we had, that we got Israelis and Palestinians who lost their children. So you cannot have worse pain than that. Meet together in a dinner. It was tense in the beginning, but over 5-hour meeting, I saw people exchange numbers, phone numbers, so people can coexist. And we wanted to push for peace till, this is my end of 1996, no reason. They denied me to go for a meeting. And I didn't have I'm a peace activist. Because, to move from Gaza outside to, even when I was going to college in Hebron, West Bank, from 1990 to 1995, it was always a struggle to get, because you have to have a special permit you apply for, and they have to approve you somehow, you're not a danger person, and you can go and travel. First 2 years was easy, then it started to become very difficult for us to go back and forth, where it's only an hour and 10 minutes, and I would say 4 months not able to go see my mom and dad. It was a struggle. It was always a struggle to live as a Palestinian there. So when 1996 they denied me entry, I said, there's no hope. This government will, even people coexist. You have those fanatics in the government and crazy. They will always find ways because they have the authority and they have the power. And that's when I decided I'm gonna pursue my education in America. And since then I've been living here and I go back sometimes. And last time I could go was 2009. And I've been trying since to go back. I couldn't see my mom and dad when they passed. I was denied to go until they had last year in July, I don't forget that day, July 26th, the United States and Israel decided Israel was going to go into this called visa waiver program, where Israelis can go in America without a visa, and in condition that they will allow any Palestinian. If you're a Palestinian born in Palestine before, you are not treated as American, even if you have your American passport. Wow. And I personally, 2011, the guy, when I gave him my American passport, he threw it back to the floor, outside from the window. He said, give me your Palestinian passport. I said, it's expired. Expired since 2005, and I haven't renewed it because I have my American. He said, no, Give me your Palestinian. He threw down the American passport. I told the embassy, and of course nobody cares. When it comes to Israel, no complaints taken, no. So I went July 26. They had this agreement, and I called the Department of Justice and said, okay, I've been in. They tried multiple times. They said no, you cannot go in. I said no, we have it covered now. You can go. Just give them your American passport. So I buy tickets for me and my wife and the kids. Excited. Landed in Tel Aviv because I could never buy a ticket to Tel Aviv as a Palestinian. They will not even sell you the ticket because your name will flag and you will not. Americans you can, but if you're American but Palestinian isn't, you cannot buy. You are not allowed. But we used to go through the Jordanian side. That's where you try. Excuse me. So we landed in Tel Aviv July 26. We checked my passport. No entry.
Wow.
So I asked an officer, asked for an officer to come, and I said, okay, you guys had an agreement. You should not ask me where I am from. That was the detail in the Department of Justice information on their website and your website. He said, yeah, but we changed. You are born in Gaza. I said, okay, you don't choose where you were born. I'm proud I was born in Gaza, but what is this has to do with you had an agreement, any American can go in. He says, yeah, but you were born in Gaza, we cannot allow you. And they insisted, so I knew at the time I was never gonna go in. If this is like after this agreement and they denied me entry, so my wife and the kids, I barely convinced them to go in, because every time we go, they refuse to go in without me. So we'd all go back to Jordan. This time they decided to go. I forced them actually. I said, please go, because our friends were waiting for us on the other side of the airport. And they went in and I took a flight. They wanted to send me back to the US. I refused. So I took a flight to Istanbul, Amman, and the next day I tried again through the bridge, and they still denied me entry. So I complained to the Department of State. Finally, after 2 months, they said, okay, now we resolved your specific issue. You can go. And then October 7th happened. I was planning to go in October. Then October 7th happened, and it's like I don't think my Facebook now will burn all the bridges. so they look up my Facebook, they will not give me entry anyway.
Can I ask you a question? What reason did they give you for not allowing you in? What was the
Born in Gaza,
reason?
officially,
You were born in Gaza.
yes, but officially I told him, put it in writing. I'm gonna get to that. They are ignorant, arrogant. Like they really not too smart, but very arrogant. Like they see themselves above all people. Not only color, like they are so, I have no idea what's wrong with them, that they think they are better than everybody. And this is a big problem when you deal with somebody that he is actually lower than you. So it's hard like to see, like I'm age-wise, I'm older. You have to respect my age. I'm more educated than half of you guys work there. And why do you think you're better than me when you? So they give orders. They don't care, and they don't really. And unfortunately, they think America is in their small pocket. So when you say I'm going to complain to the Department of State, they will laugh. They will literally laugh at you and say, "Oh, go ahead. Nobody. What are you going to do?" So they're very arrogant. And the reason they put in my in the letter they gave me, I insisted on getting a letter to send it to the Department of State. They said, fear of illegal immigration. I said, okay, I have an American passport. It doesn't work on American passport. If you have any other passport, maybe it makes sense, but American passport, you're gonna go live there. No, it's not. America is better. So they were like my wife and my kids' experience in the West Bank was also very difficult for them to grasp the way the apartheid regimes are, how they, like, literally, if you are Palestinian, you cannot go on roads. A lot of roads are like no Palestinians allowed. Yeah, oh, wait, the wall they built, and I wish that maybe Brother Ray can share that link. It gives the evolution of how they diminish the land, the takeover, like there's like year by year, and how it is now, like every small city, there is a circle of a wall that's maybe 20 feet long, high, surrounding that wall with a gate. So for you to leave from town to town, that sometimes a shortcut could take you 7 minutes. It might take you 3-4 hours. Because you have to go around to get to that gate, and that gate they can just put a couple of tanks or a couple of like military jeeps. They're closed. You're inside, you cannot do it. It's so ridiculous that, and I want to go back to Gaza and maybe, so Gaza, since they left 2005, the Gaza Strip, they had a lot of settlements that broke Gaza into 4 areas. That's what they're trying to do now. You see how they break the south from the north, from the middle, from the middle of Gaza. They're trying to go back to what they had, those settlements where they broke down Gaza into 4 sections. And that's to control better for them, divide and conquer. So they, in Gaza, when they left 2005, there was 2006, there was a big election. The election through the government, not the presidency. It was like the Congress here and the Senate. And Hamas won the majority. It didn't win 100%. Hamas became the majority of like seats to run that government. So Hamas will lead the government. Here comes the United States and Israel. They refuse the election. But it's not your election. This is the Palestinians. They decided to, okay, let Hamas take it's elected officially by the people. I might disagree with Hamas in a lot of things, but they won democratically. They can lead. Let's see what they're going to do. And they refuse, and they start fighting Hamas by the other teams from the Palestinian side, by sending them more money, giving them more, like, small arms to rebel and take over. And here is 2008, Hamas, somehow there was a big fight between the existing, like, refused to agree on the election people, and here you go, Hamas took over. The other guys ran away, Hamas took over, Hamas became the power, complete 100% power. Before it was not 100%, it was part of the democratic. So when Hamas took over, they started the blockade on Gaza. So that's 2000, I believe, 7 or 8. This is complete closure in Gaza, counting calories for the people, like how many calories, that's for the amount of food they go in, counting exactly everything that they claim Hamas can use as a weapon. You cannot, like certain things you cannot import, you cannot get this in, you cannot get that. So they made the Gaza very, very difficult. I visited when last time was 2009 through Egypt, and we were through a medical supplies campaign because of the blockade. We took from the United States, we were like 300 people, Americans. We went to Gaza through Egypt. We took with us the medical devices. And at the time, I was working for medical and pharma companies. So we took a lot of medicine and we walked in. They only allowed us 24 hours to go in and out. So we took that, and that was my last time I visited Gaza. And I saw Hamas was in control. It didn't look like chaos. It was normal talking to people. Everything was but it was hard life because a lot of necessities were not given to them, and it blockade. And since 2006, 7, things got worse and multiple wars happened until October 7, which, like, the use of force Israel is doing is unrealistic. It's a genocide. The way they are killing people, it's like unbelievable. Myself, I got hurt I lost my niece with her 3 children. All of her husband's family completely wiped because they decided to bomb a whole block. And her house was one of them. So they were not, like, if there is one person they want to reach and there is maybe 10,000 people around them, they don't mind bombing the 10,000 to reach one person, which doesn't make no ethics in war. They have no ethics in war. It's completely genocide, and the world is watching. Unfortunate, the U.S. used their 4th-time veto for a ceasefire, which is yesterday. Like, it's unfortunate. Really, very, very sad to see that those people still allow and not oppose something, killing of children and innocent people, like civilians. There is no justification to killing from both sides. We don't want to see anybody blood go, but the cycle of revenge will never end. If keep killing somebody, it's always going to be somebody else. So I believe whoever did, and this is personal belief, whoever did October 7 from the Hamas side are children who grew up because they lost their family. Because a lot of people now, in these days, they're orphans. And those kids in 10, 15 years, they're going to grow up, what they're going to be? I mean, you took all of their family from them. What are they going to give you a hug? They're not going to be peaceful. So you're creating like more violence. They're not, and they're targeting every possible means of life in Gaza. So, like in Gaza now, all hospitals, 70% of the hospitals are out of commission. 70%. All the north side and the middle Gaza, they're gone. There's no hospitals. They're all clinics. There's no even enough, no surgical operations in those. Only in Rafah, which is the south side, that they are threatening. The only city, Khan Yunis, which is next to Rafah, that told people to go to, now they are in the last hospital. And I don't know why they are targeting hospitals, schools, universities. All the universities were bombed completely. Even, like, there's pictures of you. Why would you, and they're videotaping themselves bombing those universities. Like, they have videos released on social media by the Israeli soldiers enjoying, like, counting down the blow up of a whole block and a whole university. It's unfortunate situation, and we really appreciate your support to Palestine. We need it, and please don't vote Biden. Whatever it takes, we should abandon Biden to show him that we can make a difference. Hopefully Trump doesn't become the president, but we should give us ourselves to, we have good candidates actually coming. So I definitely voting not Biden, not Trump. So,
Okay,
thank you.
let's give him a solid hand. Now, Sharon, I don't know, do we have time? Do you have time for a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Well, he said it's 2:30.
Yeah, I can leave 10 minutes is okay.
He has 10 minutes.
I can leave.
Okay, so
If you guys have any questions.
does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask him?
I have a question while they're thinking. I know you mentioned that, was it your sister and
My niece.
your niece?
Yes.
Had some.
3 daughters, 3 children.
How does that make you feel? You know, I imagine it's a frustration. In fact, I think I heard Sharon and other people asking questions here. It's terrible to me that as a Palestinian, you weren't allowed to go back, but people who are Israelis are allowed to go back.
Yeah.
Right.
This is sickening.
You need the mic.
Oh,
It's very sickening, especially I've been suffering this for a long time, not be able to go back. Maybe that's why I became numb a little bit. But you know, imagine going all the way. It's 12 hours flight, and taking multiple routes, especially when you are either from Egypt or Jordan. You still need an hour, 2 hours. From Egypt, 4 hours, 4.5 hours to get to the border. To tell you for no reason. I mean, what did I do to deny me entry to my country? And at the same time, I have my kids. They're considered Americans, not Palestinians, because they don't have the ID, and they are welcome to go. Like for them, they say you can go, but you were born here, you cannot go. I said, did you hear? Like there is no rational. I mean, it's. I say this is the arrogance of the it's like the Pharaoh. When he one day, because he has a lot of power, he decided to become God. And I think these guys, those guys, Zionists, they reach that level. They think because they are in control and they control a lot of things, they are gods and they can do whatever they want, nobody will stop them. But history, nothing goes up, doesn't come down. This is, we have hope, we are a believer, we accept faith and things that we cannot control. And that what makes us strong, is if you can't change it, we try to do our best, we don't stop. But sometimes we have to accept things and live with them, and that's the patience piece. Thank you.
any other questions for Josh?
I don't have
We are recording this, and I think they also see people on live.
I don't have a question. I just want to make sure everybody knows that Malcolm did visit
Yeah.
when he was alive. And in 1964, he wrote one of the earliest critiques of Zionism, a piece called Zionist Logic. It was published in the Egyptian Gazette, September 64, and you can readily find it online.
Okay, say that again, Josh.
Zionist Logic by Malcolm X.
Thank you. And I know we have a couple of students with us. Do we have any questions from the students in here with us today? Elizabeth? Yeah.
I think you pretty much covered it in terms of your question, because I know you even mentioned that you weren't able to go back to Gaza for your mother and your dad's funeral. So I was just like, as you were talking, I was really just seeing like the parallels of it, because I was one of those people that when really like the media was starting to cover heavily everything that was going on in Gaza, and seeing all like the Black activists like covering it. At first I was like confused in terms of the parallels, but as we were talking, it just, everything connected. And so, like, really, I'll just sit here and say, like, I'm very sorry for everything that you've had to go through, and like all the term, like everything, like in regards to like all the discrimination that you've had to go through in terms of just getting back to the place in which you were born, just because of the identities that you have. So, yeah, I really do appreciate you coming here.
Thank you.
Okay. Michaela, you have a question?
Thank you. I wanted to know, like, what's the biggest and most effective form of resistance you've seen so far, as far as the media, actually showing what's happening now? What's been the best show of solidarity that's actually made a difference recently?
Thank you. This is a great question. I think in this country we need a change, and we hope for a strong leader who can actually pull more people around and make that change. But demonstration, I try to go to all my kids too. I try to push them. I've been wearing the Palestinian flag since day one. Wherever I go, I try to send a message. I was in Chicago last Saturday. I got a lot of stares staring at me. So I am a believer, and I really I don't care. But demonstration, senates, I think our Congress and Senate are controlled by the Zionists. If they're not, all of them are, most of them. And a change will happen when those who care about America and put America first, by the meaning of putting America first, they be in control, then things will change. The minute Israel starts paying for the bombs, they will rethink about how many bombs they throw at the Palestinians. But they're not paying. They're getting free bombs, free rockets. So why not use them if they're not actually bombs, experimental bombs to use? So this is unfortunate. And America is the place where actually it can control that. If no aid to Israel goes on, yeah, aid Israel, I don't mind, but don't send weapons that kills innocent people. Put rules on these weapons that they get exported, not they bypass the Congress to send them, which is very illegal in this country. So the loyalty to Israel and these Zionists is becoming so big or so open now that we shouldn't accept as Americans, and we should change that, and we should push for that change.
Let's give Brother Khaled a hand again and thank him for coming out. And I mentioned when I was introducing him, he has a restaurant in Falls Church called Bawadi Mediterranean Grill. So we want to do the opposite of boycott. We want to support him. So if you have an opportunity to go out, I have some cards I'll pass out. And I'll just remind people, when I was telling you when I introduced him about my own history, I got arrested at the South African Embassy in 1985 when we were trying to get the Anti-Apartheid Act passed. Because the only way the apartheid regime was able to stay in power in South Africa is because of support from the United States. Hint, hint. So what we have to do is to make sure that if someone is using our weapons to kill innocent women and children in something similar to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we need to stop doing that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. I brought some baklava for everybody.
Oh, okay, you brought some refreshments, so thank you. Take the cup off so we can pass it around. Okay, thank you very much again.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we have some questions for Mr. Bailey, and who was here, and we told you during the introduction that I think there are very few members of the OAAU still left alive. And so we should treasure our brother Peter Bailey, and hopefully we can keep him here a long time and ask questions. And I think one of the questions that I think we talked about, now, I wasn't sure, Josh, did any of the students want to make any remarks before we go to question A? Okay. So part of what we were trying to do was to have people say, who were in the audience live, what were you, what were you thinking, what were you doing when you learned about Malcolm's assassination? And for the young people, what have you learned and how do you see what you have learned about Malcolm helping us in 2024? Anybody want to start? Like Linda?
In terms of what I was.
Tell people who you are and what school you go to.
Okay, my name's Elizabeth Wilson. I go to Howard University. Or, my name's Elizabeth Wilson. I go to Howard University. I'm a sophomore there.
No, stand up to the.
Oh, you want me to? Oh, you want me to?
Get up here.
Okay. My name's Elizabeth Wilson. I'm a sophomore at Howard University. In terms of what I was talking about today, if we're talking about specifically in terms of like middle school and high school, it wasn't something that was really talked about in detail. It was more so them comparing Malcolm X to MLK, and them talking about MLK was all about peace, and Malcolm X was the very opposite. And one of the motivations for me even coming to this event was actually my reading of the autobiography of Malcolm X this past summer, and that's really where like I learned more so about not only his life but also the events of his assassination, and also like the effects afterwards. That book was really like transformative in my life. I learned a lot more about that in terms of his assassination and the effects of it from that moment in time. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? We have another student. You want to say something?
Sure. Yeah.
You know the drill. Stand up so that we can see you.
Hi, I'm Isabella Salcedo. I'm current grad student at American University. I would say, Elizabeth, I don't have that much to add in terms of, in learning about Malcolm X in middle school, high school is always, I think, in comparison to, in those like history classes that we take, it's always in comparison to Martin Luther King and their ideologies mainly. And I think it's a similar thing for me where what I've learned about him was through my own sort of seeking out of knowledge, of reading his autobiography and different things that he himself, or other texts that he's written. So I would say it's a pretty similar to what Elizabeth, you just said. Thank you.
So, Dr. Myers, do you have something that you would like to add? Anyway, Dr. Cobb.
Hold on, Professor Bailey wants to speak now.
No, I just want to say that what I plan on spending the rest of my days doing is showing, I want to set up an organization, maybe change the name of our current organization and call it the Malcolm Martin Unity Group. Because we have allowed the system to divide us around by those two brothers. And I'm telling you, that is a bunch of junk. Absolute, total junk.
Thank you.
And we need people who support Brother Malcolm and people who support Dr. King. We need to get together and form a unity organization that looks out for the interests of our people in this society. And if we don't do that, I'm not blaming nobody else but us. I'm not blaming nobody else. Most of those brothers believe strongly in the need for Black unity. and the people who are teaching in these universities and all most of these other places, they are trying to constantly talk about the conflict between. Brother Malcolm went to Selma. They would not allow him to see Dr. King when he went to Selma. Brother Malcolm,
Coretta and other people though allowed him to speak at, was it Brown Chapel?
yes,
He spoke at the church.
yeah, because they wouldn't allow him to they were worried about what would happen if he, if he went to visit Dr. King when he was in prison in Selma. So I think that to me, and I consider myself a Malcolmite, but I have always had a tremendous amount of respect for Dr. King, because the Dr. King that they promote around that to you all, to the young people, is an absolute lie. If Dr. King had been, everything you see about Dr. King, I personally would not go to anything around Dr. King with the word dream in it. If the word dream is in it, I'm not going. Because that brother was way more than a dreamer. Way more. And to have them reduce him to being some kind of dreamer is a lie. It's an out and out lie, and it is done deliberately. And unfortunately, too many of our people have gone right along with it. And every time there's anything they do with Dr. King, they always have the word dream in it somewhere. Dr. King was much more than a dreamer. He believed in doing concrete actions. And he and Brother Malcolm, I think Edgar Hoover, in a book by this white journalist, he wrote a book on Edgar Hoover. And in that book, it's about 450-some pages. There's one mention of Brother Malcolm. But it's very important because he has Hoover talking to Senator Lyndon Johnson. Now, if he's talking to Senator Lyndon Johnson at a luncheon, that means that it had to be before 1960 because Johnson became vice president. And Hoover said, we got to get those guys fighting each other. And what he was talking about, I'm not giving the whole quote, but and those two guys were Brother Malcolm and Dr. King. Mm-hmm. That's what Edgar Hoover said. Now, if Dr. King had been the dreamer, they tried to get, why would Hoover feel, he said, we got to keep these two guys. And what they did, of course, was they would have people in Brother Malcolm's organization talking about Dr. King negatively. They would have people in Brother Malcolm's organization constantly putting down Dr. King. Because they were hoping that these two brothers would be fighting each other. Mm-hmm. And when they saw, and they were slowly moving towards each other, I think that's when Edgar Hoover said they both got to go. They both got to go. Because these brothers they formed a country with each other, we would have had the most powerful movement of our history in this country. And those two brothers been able to do that. And Hoover was very, very determined that was not going to happen. After the assassination of Brother Malcolm, when they set up COINTELPRO, which is basically a spy organization to spy on the black folks. And one of the things it says is we must prevent, when it is objectives, we must prevent the rise of a black messiah. Malcolm X could have been one or would have been one had he not been killed. And then it listed three possibilities: Elijah Muhammad, Dr. King, Stokely Carmichael, later Kwame Ture. And this is in concrete. And he says, kind of Elijah Muhammad, they basically said in the thing, he's too old, so we don't worry about him. So they were talking about Dr. King and Kwame. Dr. King ended up assassinated. And by the way, folks, do not say Dr. King, Brother Malcolm, Medgar Evers were killed. They were assassinated. Don't say they were killed. You got to always say assassinated. Because it puts it into the political historical perspective that it was there. But J. Edgar Hoover was concerned before 1960 about any kind of serious connection between Brother Malcolm and Dr. King. And so the people who call themselves supporters of Dr. King and supporters of Brother Malcolm, if we want to do real justice to those two brothers, we will set up what I call the Malcolm Martin Unity Organization.
All right. Sure. Oh, there's light up here, I can see. How's everybody? I just kind of want to piggyback on what our brother from Palestine said earlier, and what our brother, one of our committee members, Josh Myers, mentioned. I found an article. Here's the cover of the article because you can't really see it, but it's called Geographies of Liberation, the Making of an Afro-Arab Political Imaginary. Okay, and in the article, it was a visual history of Black Palestinian solidarity, Middle East Eye by Salim Agwar. He wrote, from the 60s onward, Black nationalist groups and Palestinian activists found common cause in opposing imperialism and racism. Black Palestinian activism is not a new phenomenon, but a revergence of a historic alliance rooted in the global fight against racism and imperialism. Malcolm is seen with leaders of the Palestinian Liberation Organization in 1964. Malcolm was one of the most important voices of the Black struggle in the United States. His trip to Saudi Arabia to complete a pilgrimage is well documented, but in addition to visiting Mecca, Malcolm traveled to Palestine on a number of occasions. We don't talk about that. We always talk about his ties to Saudi Arabia, but not all of his Middle Eastern travels, his international travels. On his last trip to Palestine in 1964, the Black national leader visited the Gaza Strip and was met by the Palestinian poet Harun Hashim Rashad. During his trip, Malcolm toured the refugee camps, hospitals, and bore witness to the plight of the Palestinians displaced by Israel. Remember, this is 1964. This encounter led him to writing a letter to the Egyptian Gazette entitled, as was previously mentioned, Zionist Logic, in which he declares his staunch support for the Palestinian struggle and equates Zionism with the colonialism, urging African leaders to support the Palestinian quest for freedom. Through his advocacy, Malcolm linked Black internationalism with the Palestinian causes, and this created a legacy of solidarity that would influence Black Palestinian revolutionaries to come. I searched very hard to find this connection between Brother Malcolm and the Palestinians, because that's not often talked about. You know, because my question to myself was, what would Malcolm say about what's going on right now? So I was able to find that answer, okay? He had visited the Gaza Strip, and I don't know if there's any footage. You know, I have a few, as I said, I found one article. Malcolm was with Prince Faisal during his trip to Mecca, but this was in Saudi Arabia, you know. And I just personally deem, I know most people call him a Pan-Africanist, but I really call him a world leader, because he was on the verge of tying this knot between America, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, you know, and that's where I think he was headed. So that's my, thank you.
Okay. Well, this is where my concern is, because to me, Brother Malcolm was, first of all, the Pan-Africanist. And that was his main thing. And in the newsletter, which I said I was the editor of, one of them said, "Racist America blasted by Africa." He's talking about Africa sending that notice about the United States when he that letter condemning white supremacy in the United States. There's another headline. Malcolm X is praised in Kenya. You know, Brother Malcolm to me was first of all a Pan-Africanist. He believed that people were African descent. Now he believed in forming alliances with other people, you know, who shared, you know, who were also being exploited and ripped off by the people of European descent that was happening to other people in the world. But to me, his first identity was a Pan-Africanist, and that's what he that's what he talked to us about. You know, most of the time was being a Pan-Africanist, and trying to get people of African descent to understand that our problem in this world is based on the fact. In fact, I have come, you know, after assassination was 59 years ago, when Brother Malcolm was advocating and pushing this, and here we are in 2024, and people of African descent in North America and people of African descent on the continent have still not gotten together. And as far as I'm concerned, I ain't blaming nobody else for that. That is our fault. That's our fault. That in 2024, 59 years after the assassination of Brother Malcolm and other things that have happened, that we still have not formed serious unity organization in North America and serious unity organization on the African continent. So the stuff that's happening to us now, I'm blaming us. I get a lot of criticism of that, but that's my position now. I don't want to hear nothing about what they do. We know what they're doing. We know what the exploiters. The Washington Post ran an article of a supplement in 2009. The Washington Post ran a 8-page supplement. The title of it was Africa on the Agenda. Not Africa's agenda, folks. Africa on the agenda. Now this is one of the 3 or 4 most powerful newspapers in America, the Washington Post. They did an 8-page supplement. And you know what the subhead in that supplement was? Africa, the key to global economic growth. Now, if you are the key to global economic growth, there's absolutely no reason for you to be in the situation you're in today. None. And here they're telling you the key to global economic growth. This is in the Washington Post. When I went to a Pan-African Congress in Ghana in 2018, I took that paper with me. And there were people there there were black people there from 40 different countries. And I held it up and I said, here we are. We should be. I said, one thing that to me, that Africa and people are going to learn from North America is this. You're going to be continental. That's what Abraham Lincoln said. Ain't nobody split. New York is not going to be a state. Georgia is not going to be a state. Alabama, a country. Alabama, you're going to be the United States, the continent of North America. When these people travel around, they might, in this country, oh, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Georgian. I'm a Californian. I'm a New York, South Carolinian. But when they go abroad, what do they say? I'm an American. I'm an American. The Africans come over here, I'm Nigerian. I'm Ghanaian. I'm Kenyan. They don't say I'm African. And the other continents, Asia, Europe, and North America, are taking full advantage of that right now as we sit here. They're taking full advantage of the lack of unity among the continent of Africa. And the white supremacists in this country take full advantage of the lack of unity of people of African descent in North America. And to me, if we are not unified now, and we are not, I'm not blaming nobody else. I'm blaming us. For some of the stuff that's happening to us today is because we are not unified, and they know it. And what they do to quiet us down, the one faction of the European people, they'll just give somebody some big position, and we just go, oh, we got a black vice president. That woman has practically no identity with us. And yet we teaching our children that she's some kind of great symbol for us as a people. Practically no identity with us. I couldn't care less if Joe Biden decides that he's going to put a white woman in that ticket in 2024. I couldn't care less. Because she hasn't done one single thing, not one single thing for us as a people. And yet we consider her some kind of great role model, a historical thing for our children. And as long as we do that kind of thing, folks, we're gonna get screwed. Until we learn, that's why, like I said before, I'm hoping that somehow I can get together with some brothers and we can form an organization called the Malcolm Martin Unity Association. Thank you.
Josh.
I just want to ask Brother Peter, in line with what you just said, what is the positive Black folks in action, and why does that exist? For the people who may not know.
Okay. Positive Black folks in action. How many members are here tonight? 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. But we started, what, 20 years ago? I think so. We started 20 years ago to form a kind of unity, to show what we were doing positive as a people, to talk about us positively, not always negatively. Not to allow people to use all kinds of negative things against us. To talk about positive things that we were doing as a group of people that was aiding us, and that was aiding the world, and that was aiding other people of African descent around the world. And we're still here. We struggle because we're up against it. So the majority of our people in this country have completely swallowed the psychological aspect of what this country's trying to do. And so they don't do those type of things that positive Black folks in Africa that we were thinking that we get we could encourage our people to do. And as I said before, nobody is saying, I'm not dumb enough to think that and we're gonna agree on every single thing, because we're not. But we'll be discussing things and dealing with things based on within our unit, just like the United States does. All these politicians fight each other different things, but they all agree on one thing: the United States would be on top. And they might one say do it this way, one say do it this way, but now the question that they want their country to be the big boy in the world. None of them question that. And we need to have that same kind of unity among our people so that we can and positive Black folks in Africa, we were hoping that we might be able to help bring that about some kind of way. And unfortunately, it's part up to us. We haven't done as much as we should have done, and things like that. But I'm hoping that we will really start pushing that. And like I said before, I would like for us to change our name to the Malcolm Martin Unity Association.
Okay, I'm wrapping up. I can see it here and I can't see a face. That's all right. You have a question or you have a comment?
Yeah, one last question for you too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, hi everyone, I'm a Howard alumni. I actually took Dr. Meyer's class, and I'm teaching at DC jail right now. A lot of my students have been submitting to Islam, and I don't know for like what the reasons are. I'm not Muslim myself, so I just wanted to know, like, what could you share with me? What's the relationship between like the oppressive experience being incarcerated and just submitting to Islam?
I don't know if I have a complete answer to that. I think one of the history of Islam in America is that it really, I guess, took off a lot because many of the early converts to Islam, like Donald Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm, and Wallace Muhammad, were incarcerated. And so they developed discipline and I guess a history and tradition of doing things, in the jail. In fact, unfortunately, at one point in time, when I first came in 1973, I've been a Muslim about 50 years. A significant portion of our membership were ex-offenders, people who were returning citizens. And in fact, this will be a chance for me to make an announcement. When Peter was talking about how the United States government, and it wasn't just J. Edgar Hoover, it was the whole government, Lyndon Johnson and others, they were trying to prosecute and disrupt, the spread of Islam. But there's a verse in the Quran that says, they may try and put out the light of Allah, but Allah will perfect his light, even though the polytheists hate it. And so a person who's really a believer, and my name is Ibrahim Mukman, in Arabic that means a believer, you're not bothered by that. And I think what Brother Dr. Khalid Mekki was saying, one of the most dangerous persons you can find in the world is somebody who's lost hope. But as Muslims, we taught that nothing happens except by Allah's permission. And I say to I have grandchildren, I find things that happen in the society as tools for teaching. And believe it or not, one of the tools that I found was a record by Michael Jackson. He's called The Man in the Mirror. And he said, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make the change. That's an important principle in Islam. And so many people who came to Islam in the early days, as well as now, who were in prison, they were drug addicts, they had been involved in crime and other kind of things. And what Islam says is that you got to take a look, don't be blaming Biden and the mayor and other people. Take a look at yourself. Clean yourself up, and then you can move out with other people. But unfortunately, a lot of times people, I think, point the thing at other people because that gives you a pass for what you are failing to do or stuff. So I think the attraction, in fact, I have nothing to do with it. There's really a growth of Islam, not just in the prison, but also in the secular society with a lot of young people, because they are turned off with what they see and they see some hope. And I just try, and I'm glad that you're here and that you're doing the work that you're doing. I think what Peter said, I resented people trying to always make me choose between Malcolm and Martin. I believe and support both Malcolm and Martin. But it wasn't that, I'm not into personality worship. I came up in the Nation of Islam. I had a lot of respect for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but I also, was involved with Wallace D. Muhammad when he became the leader. And also I'm involved with interfaith work. Just like Brother Khalid talked about, in 1996, I became the first chairman in Washington of a group called the National Conference of Christians and Jews. And I joined, even though my name wasn't in the group, because the mission of the organization was to fight bias, bigotry, and racism. And I'm a victim of that. I can join that. And eventually what I did when I joined hand with some Jewish brothers and sisters who also felt that was a issue, and we changed the name, from National Council of Christians and Jews to National Council of Community and Justice, and it was a national organization. But I wanted to also say, a lot of times people lose hope, and I got arrested. I'm celebrating 61 years of being an activist. I'm looking at Linda, and she's, well, sisters don't like to tell their age, but she's been involved a long time. But what keeps me going is you're fighting for freedom. And I think that's what Brother Khaled is saying. Some people say, well, why don't you get burned out? No, I don't get burned out. Because if you're a freedom fighter, there's either victory or death. And I'm not dead, and I tell my grandkids, I still got a little gas left in the tank. And as far as sometimes people get discouraged because they don't have the numbers that they think they should have. And I remind them that on December 1st, 1955, there was a little old lady who refused to give up her seat on the bus in Montgomery, Alabama. She was by herself. And later people joined her. So if you have the spark in you, the fire in your belly, keep going on and be patient. And that's one of the things that's hard in our society. And I commend you to look at people like Nelson Mandela and others, because if they were impatient, you can't spend 27 years in jail if you're impatient. You'd be in the nut house. Does that help any of you?
Yeah, thank you.
I would like to say again, for those people who are not Muslim or Muslim or Christian, that there's a spirituality, I call it spiritual thing in our people, that is very, very strong. And though I am not, do not consider myself either, but when I hear James Cleveland and the recent bankruptcy, I don't feel no ways tired. Nobody told me the road was going to be easy. I mean, come on, man. That's a song that has a power no matter what your religious belief is. That's a song. That's a spiritual song. And I think in those kind of spiritual songs, we need to promote more among our young people. They're not doing that kind of thing today, unfortunately. Songs like that. That have a, because I really truly believe that with us, that people of African descent, we are a spiritual people. We are a spiritual people, and we have our individual religious beliefs. But when it comes to like certain things, man, we all feel it. Even when I hear them sing, "Don't feel no ways tired," or "Lean on Me," or those kind of songs, we should teach our children those kind of songs. But we don't. We don't. We should teach To Be Young, Gifted, and Black by Nina Simone. I mean, every black child in America should be singing that song. But we don't do that. We don't do that. And as I said, brothers and sisters, well, I'm saying this time, I ain't blaming nobody else. That's our fault. That's our fault. That every young black child over 5 years old cannot sing To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. That's our fault.
Oh, okay, I'm going to wrap up. If there's not other questions, I have a couple of announcements or comments. First, I want to thank the participants who came out, especially our students, from HU. As I was telling you, I'm an alum. I had the pleasure of getting locked up there in 1969. And so I have a lot of my history goes to Howard.
And I went there for 2 years. That's where I was introduced to black.
And in fact, I'll share with you, one thing is that it closed. Some of you probably may be too young to remember artist Hampshire Cowan. She was a vice president at Howard, retired recently. But I was at a dinner with the former president, I forget his name, downtown at a banquet. And she introduced me and she says, this is Ibrahim Movement. And he got locked up at the school in 1969. And she said, had he done today what he did in 1969, instead of arresting him, we would have given him an honorary degree. Sure. Because at the time that I was at Howard, ROTC was compulsory, and I said, we was against the war, we supported the Vietnamese. One of my big issues was that there was an arrogance at Howard where they told people on the staff as well as students who came from all over the country, the people who lived around Howard University in the Pleasant Plains, where we are now, LaDroit Park and Shaw, were block boys and block girls. And I said, that's sick, jacked up thinking. As black people, we should be trying to use the School of Medicine, the School of Dentistry, the law school, the School of Social Work, the School of Education, all these great resources that Howard University has to help poor black people that's around the university. And believe it or not, that was a fight. But that's part of what was on our agenda when I got arrested in 1969. But I think there's some clinics and things now that have changed over the years, I hope. The other thing I just want to mention before we close is that he won't say anything, and Sharon is gone, but the PETA just, in the last year, published a new book on Malcolm's strategic.
Brother Malcolm X's strategic Pan-Africanism.
Say that again?
Brother Malcolm X's strategic Pan-Africanism. And the subtitle is An Important Guide for People of African Descent.
And you can get that either here in Sankofa, or how else can you get the book?
Well, right now, I've been paid to get them done myself. I didn't go
self-published.
I didn't go to a publisher because they were trying to get me to change everything. So I'm now going to be meeting with some friends in the next week or so, and we're going to get more copies done out. So it'll be available hopefully by the end of March. But anybody who wants a copy can either get it here at Sankofa, or can call me at 202-291-4560 and find out about when the copies will be available. But it focuses solely on what Brother Malcolm was doing internationally.
And that's the point that we're trying to make as inarticulate as we could today. Malcolm was not just quote a civil rights leader. His expansion, his vision was much bigger. And
he was a human rights.
He was a human rights activist. You know. He also wanted to just make an announcement. Some of you know my wife, Carol Movement. She's a playwright, and she's not here today because she's working on that play called her flagship play called Where Eagles Fly. And Where Eagles Fly is going to be coming to a theater near you. I can't announce it yet because we haven't signed a contract with the theater. But it's in Washington, D.C., and it's going to be in October of this year. So if you are on the Sankofa list and our website, you'll get that. And also I wanted to, I think Michaela is still around, I see I think Kamal in the back.
Jonathan.
And Jonathan, we wanted to really thank again the members of the owners of Sankofa for allowing us to be here. This is a wonderful space, and also it encourages people to read and to study. And Michaela, did you want to say anything else?
No, I think you got it covered. It's our we're celebrating more than 25 years in business.
Okay.
Which we're happy. Thank you to everyone's support. Go to sankofa.com, sign up for our newsletter, and look at our upcoming events. And that's about it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Okay.
And I come here every Sunday to get intellectually stimulated.
Okay. If you come here,
arguing with folks and laughing with folks and arguing.
If you come here on Sunday, you may see Professor Peter Bailey. You can argue with him. Thank you very much for coming.